Hey, you guys. So I talked to you before about how a lot of times, if you like me have you're naturally inclined to respond to pain with anger, that people don't receive that well. And people will react to you being angry. People have reacted to me being angry with rejection, and they don't want to come anywhere near you, and they act like you have a skin disease, etc. And that can be very difficult for us. I want to talk today about another response that I have often gotten to when I'm expressing my anger, and that is someone urging me to forgive and to forgive the person who hurt me and to move into forgiveness when I'm in anger. And the interesting thing is that, forgiveness is a very noble pursuit, right? But forgiveness is really the end of the line. And it doesn't work very well if we try to jump straight to forgiveness and circumvent the what's going on with the anger. So let me back this up a little bit here. First of all, 99.9999999% of what is going to trigger anger in me when it's coming from pain is going to be pain from relationships. So whether it's relationships with my family, relationships, intimate relationships, romantic relationships, work relationships, etc. And there's the full spectrum of relationships, right? So pain triggers anger in me, and almost always that pain is going to come from some kind of a relationship. So the pain is coming from a wound that I have suffered, or that I have experienced from someone that I'm in a relationship with, and that causes anger. Now, ultimately, the you ultimately I want to be able to get to the place where I can forgive someone who has wronged me, right? Because I would like people to forgive me when I have wronged them. And because forgiveness is very, very valuable, and it's a really there's a huge release that comes in forgiveness, right? And I don't want to get into the ins and outs of forgiveness. We can talk about that some other time. What I want to talk about, though, is the idea of jumping too quickly to forgiveness. And oftentimes, when I have been in the heat of my anger, and I will be expressing that to a friend, this person did this thing to me. Can you believe they said this to me, or they let me down this way? I have had a lot of occasion in my life to go through this process, because if you guys don't know, I was raised in a religious cult. My parents were very abusive. They were physically abusive, they were emotionally abusive, and they were spiritually abusive. And they joined the cult when I was 8 years old, and that I left when I was like 22, 23. And it was extreme. It was very extreme. Just to throw a fun little fact out there, my father beat my sister and I with a 2x4. Okay? So, lots of physical pain, lots of emotional pain, and my reaction to pain is anger. So, and then I'm not even going to get into the 20-year abusive marriage that I was in. If you really want to hear all those details, read my book. It's called My Exquisite Purple Life. Anyway, so the thing is, I have suffered a lot of pain, and my natural inclination to pain is to respond with anger. So I have had many, many, many occasions to work through anger in my life. The thing is, you have to start with, and I have learned that I have to start with, my wound is legit. This is the thing that I will say over and over and over to the clients that I work with. I work with survivors of religious abuse, and I work with people who are straight spouses. And side note, if you don't know what a straight spouse is a heterosexual man or woman who has unsuspectingly found themselves in a relationship with a closeted LGBTQ person, which was the case in my marriage. And I work with these two specific kinds of clients, and I work with other clients as well. But the focus of my work with them is that I am helping them to reclaim their lives, right? So they have suffered this abuse, they have suffered this pain, and they're wanting to move past that, and they're wanting to reclaim their lives. And that's the work that I do. Well, in the process of wanting to reclaim their lives, they want to move so quickly out of the yucky part of it, and they want to move to that kind of that promised land of forgiveness. And one of the things that I will say to them and work with them is, your wound is legit. Like, you shouldn't be surprised that you are angry about the pain that you have. You shouldn't be surprised that you are angry about what happened to you and what was done to you. Your wound is legit. So if your natural response to your wound is anger and not sadness, some people have a natural response which is sadness and crying. I get that. There's neither here nor there, not one better than the other. But if your natural response to pain, like mine is anger, if your wound is legit, your anger is legit. And if your anger is legit, it needs to be heard, and it needs to be allowed to express itself. And I don't mean express itself in violence or revenge or anything like that. That just perpetuates more of the same shit and causes a vicious cycle. So, but what I mean is, you should be allowed to express and to give voice to all of your anger. I mean, every fucking swear word that wants to come out of your mouth, every scream you need to utter, every wall you need to punch, just all of it. Because if your wound is legit, then your anger is legit. And so often, as I've worked through all of the wounds that I have experienced in my life, which means I've worked through a shit ton of anger that's been a response to those wounds, I have had plenty of well-meaning friends say to me when they are uncomfortable with my anger and how my anger, I'm just expressing my anger, and it's making them feel uncomfortable. They will say to me, you really need to forgive that person. You really need to forgive the cult leaders, forgive your parents, forgive your ex-husband, forgive the asshole who, cut me off on the highway. I'm over that. Anyway, and they're very well-meaning, right? The reason why they want me to be able to get to that promised land. But the other thing is, they're very uncomfortable with my anger. And so they're wanting to take that wet blanket, and they're using, I'm not going to call forgiveness a wet blanket, but they're using the ideal or the goal of forgiveness. They're using it as a wet blanket. Your anger is hot and it is blazing, blazing high. Those flames are high, and that is making me feel uncomfortable. Oh, you should forgive that person. And the problem is that it doesn't work. And I actually have literally never been able to push myself into forgiveness. And those friends of mine who have, at times in my life, made the mistake of encouraging me to move into forgiveness when I wasn't ready, this is what they got from me. Nope, I'll not be forgiving anybody. Why? Because my wound is legit. My wound is legit, therefore my anger is legit. And I am not going to blanket it and minimize it and invalidate it by just saying, oh, yes, you're right, I forgive that person. So here's an interesting analogy for you. Trying to jump straight to forgiveness, or to jump to forgiveness too quickly before your anger has had a chance to legitimize your wound, because that's what your anger is doing. It's legitimizing. It's saying that your wound is legit. And if you shortcut that process and you try to circumvent it and go straight to forgiveness, it works about as well as trying to shove yourself into your skinny jeans on the first day of your diet before you've done any of the work. So you can shove yourself into your skinny jeans, and then you can put a nice big smile on your face and say, look, I'm in my skinny jeans. Okay, but still, you're popping out all over, and if you continue to wear those, and God forbid you try to sit down or move in them, you're going to split all the seams, and it's going to be a nasty mess. So trying to circumvent and shortcut your anger and jump straight to forgiveness is the same thing. The exact same thing happens, and I see people do it all the time. No, I've forgiven him. I've forgiven my mother. I have forgiven my ex-boyfriend, and I see a nice big smile on their face, and then I see this anger just popping out everywhere. Why? Because their wound is legit, and their anger is legit, and your wound is legit, and your anger is legit. And so give yourself compassion. If your anger is screaming inside of you, allow it its voice. Allow it to, that is the rage of injustice, right? So the anger is the rage of injustice. You have suffered an injustice. You have been hurt. You have been wounded to whatever degree. And your anger is the rage of injustice about that. So have compassion for yourself. And if you are someone who does not respond naturally to pain with anger, but you are uncomfortable around people who do, try to have compassion for them. Try to understand that that anger is coming from a legit wound. So anyway, I offer you guys that. I hope that that is helpful for you. And I would love to hear your thoughts. I would love to hear your comments. If you want to go ahead and comment below, I encourage you, to talk with your friends about it. Last time I said, go get coffee with an angry friend. If you have a friend who responds to pain with anger the same way that you do, sit down, talk about your wound. Look at each other's wound and say, I see your wound and I see that it's legit. And I honor your anger because I know it's legit. And I see that it comes from a legitimate wound. So anyway, I'm sorry. You can tell this is something that's really, really important to me, and I think it's really necessary to talk about. So I am so grateful that you listened. If you enjoyed this, I hope that you share it. I hope that you like it. Please comment below. I can't wait to hear your thoughts, and I will see you next time. Okay, love you. Bye.